Okay, so I plan to record all week at the collaboration room at my work, just because it was a nice quiet place that I could be and I would have some, privacy and wouldn't have little rats running around everywhere. Hold on. Okay. And then I realized after I was leaving that I'd forgotten my tripod at home. So I have a stack of paper that I'm using instead of a tripod. So we'll see how this goes. I'm working on the angle now. When I was growing up, not my mom so much, but my dad would always treat no as like a bad word almost. Like, whenever he had something that he would want you to do, if you said no, you would be yelled at or given a spanking or whatever. And so that always taught me that I didn't really have the ability to say no. I didn't have, the right to, autonomy. Not a great lesson, especially for a young girl, but that's just the kind of thing that happens all the time these days. And because of things like that, I spent most of my life just being the yes person in my group of friends, in my family, and pretty much everything. Like, oh, you need a favor? Heather will do it for you. Oh, you need a little extra homework done? Oh, just talk to Heather. And it was exhausting. It was kind of my identity, though. I was the one who was the reliable one, the mom friend of the group. I was the one that would bend over backwards to make sure everyone else was happy. And it's not a bad thing wanting to be there to support your friends or wanting to be there to make sure that everyone else is taken care of. It's just at some point it just gets so bad that you end up in this dark place, this exhaustion that doesn't go away no matter how much you sleep, no matter how much you eat. You're just constantly feeling drained. It's like both physical and mental. And up until January of this year, I had no idea how bad that little aspect was treating me. I started therapy with a new therapist. After talking a few times, she mentioned she was worried about some codependency issues. And yeah, I guess I do have some codependency issues, but I've worked on it a lot. I don't want to be codependent. I want to be independent. I want to be my own person. And I was having a hard time finding out how to do that. But with a little work and a little help with some books like Melody Breely's Codependent No More, that was a book that I was told to read by my therapist. And it was a good book. After a while, it got a little bit too religious for me. I'm very spiritual, but I'm not very religious. I've had some hang-ups with going to churches. I grew up Baptist, and some of I just never felt fully in line with that kind of belief. I felt it was putting too many other people down. But yeah, it got a little bit too religious. It was talking about the Alcoholics Anonymous or other sorts of AA, or I guess Narcotics Anonymous, things like that, 12-step programs. And I was looking into 12-step programs just, I don't know, out of curiosity after that. And I could not find a single one that didn't have that like religious sort of spin on it. And I guess there's a lot of like politically correct wording, like your higher power and stuff like that, instead of just saying God, the one God, that sort of thing. And that helped a bit, but since I was kind of in a sort of state where I wasn't ready to figure out exactly which deity or deities or whatever I was going to like follow, it felt empty to me. So anyway, when it comes to like through Codependent No More, I read that I'm responsible for my own energy. I'm responsible for my own like reactions to things, my own emotions. And I'm not responsible for anyone else's emotions. And that was one of the big things for me with saying no to people. I always felt that I was going to let them down, or that they were going to be mad at me, or they were going to be frustrated or left without any ability to finish what they needed. And I really had to read from an outside perspective that, yeah, that's not the case. They are responsible for their feelings. I'm responsible for my feelings. And, excuse me about that. It's just hard to come to terms with that when you've spent most of your life feeling responsible for everyone else's feelings. Because I truly did. I truly did feel like I was the one holding everyone together. I was the one that was always the shoulder to cry on. When somebody needed like some sort of guidance or therapy, I was the one they would send a direct message to. Even people I'd never even met online. And yeah, I do. I truly enjoy helping people. I truly enjoy being able to be there for somebody and help them, but not to the point where I feel like I'm putting myself on the back burner. And when it comes to saying no, that is the first, like if you have weak boundaries, if you let other people take advantage of you a lot, then it is your responsibility, and it is your responsibility to build those boundaries and to uphold them. And even when somebody will come and tell you like, I know you said that you weren't gonna do this, but you just have to put it in stone and say, no, this is my boundary, this is what I'm going to uphold for myself. So no, I can give you advice on helping you a different way or whatever, but you just have to be fully committed to upholding that boundary. And saying no was one of the most difficult things I've had to teach myself how to do, but also one of the best things I've had to teach myself to do, at least when it comes to my own mental health. Because like, it's not even a black and white yes or no thing so much as saying to somebody, instead of automatically saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna do it, I'll take care of it for you, don't worry about it, like I usually do, just saying, give me a couple minutes so I can think about it, and then stepping away from the situation and spending that few minutes doing like a little pro and con, like cost versus benefits analysis almost, on how much it's going to cost you emotionally or physically or financially to do what somebody's asking you to do versus how much it's going to benefit you and the other person to not do it. And so just having that few minutes to get out of that situation, to get away from that person, to think about it, I know that my decision is going to be what I want, what is best for me, and not, just immediate, oh yes, I'm going to do it. And it really won't always be easy, especially if you have a relationship it's important to you, but is also kind of lopsided in who's doing the most lifting. And because if you can't say no when you need to, you'll honestly spend a lot of time just resenting the other person for making you feel a certain way, when in reality, you are the one who's making you feel that way. You're the one that's putting yourself in the situation of, saying yes to things that you can't do or that you shouldn't do because it's draining you too much. And without being able to look after yourself first, then how could you possibly look after yourself and somebody else? Like, just think of it this way. I know this is a overused sort of analogy and has been, you've probably heard it a million times, but in an airplane crash, they always tell you to put your own mask on before you try to put your neighbor's mask on, even if your neighbor is a 3-year-old little kid. Yeah, you always have to put your own mask on, because otherwise you are going to pass out before you can even attach the mask to your neighbor. Without having the oxygen mask in your face first, no one gets helped. It's going to be passing out for you and your neighbor, instead of just you get the oxygen and then you can give the oxygen to your neighbor. Because without looking after yourself, you're just going to burn out. You're going to not be able to function. But yeah, no is not a bad word. No is a word that can protect you. And it's also a word that is necessary for everyday life, even though it's hard to use sometimes. But it's like any muscle. Like if you're weightlifting, or if you're jogging, or if you're drawing or singing or anything, it's going to be hard at first. It's going to start out feeling unnatural and difficult. But the more you do it, the more you practice it, the easier it's going to be, and the more natural it's going to be able to give your yeses and nos when they need to be given, according to you and no one else. It can also be really difficult if there's somebody, like a boss or a parent, that you're having to deal with, and say no to them when they're used to a certain hierarchy in your relationship. Yeah, it's just super awkward to say no when it's a situation like that. And sometimes you really can't say no to your boss because you have to do your job if you're at work. As long as it's within the scope of your work, then if it's within the scope of your normal job that you've been hired on, then you can't just say no just because you don't feel like it. But if it's something that goes beyond the scope of your normal work, like say if you work from 9 to 5 and something comes up and a coworker or a boss says, hey, can you deal with this? can you deal with this? And then you end up finding yourself at work at like 10 p.m. every night when you're supposed to be working 9 to 5. Then that's the same thing. That means they're taking advantage of you because they know that you will say yes. It's different if it's like an emergency situation, but if it's consistent, that's something that you need to ask yourself, am I doing this for me, or am I doing this for them? Am I letting them take advantage of me? Can this actually wait until tomorrow? And for the most part, the world is not going to stop if you wait until tomorrow. You've just got to be able to choose your battles. And thank you for listening and talking. Subscribe to me if you like this sort of content. Give me a like if you like this sort of content. Let me know in the comments if there's anything that you have to say, any extra input for your own life, or if you want to be able to like request some sort of other information from me. I'm always open to finding new ideas for new videos because, well, I'm still looking for what works for me. Okay, so you guys have a good one and see you next time.